Dr. Kamenecki. Good morning, everybody. Is everybody really excited to be here today and ready to start this wonderful journey, I hope? Say yes, very loud. Yeah, good. All right. So what I would like to talk to you a little bit about today is sort of one of the most important things you're going to be doing in the very near future. And that is deciding on someone to be your advisor as you move forward with your research project or your study project, whatever you may be involved with. And so that's a really key component of being a graduate student. So I want to just go through a few things. I do have some resources. Don't write all these down. These slides will be given to the graduate college and they'll put them on their webpage. But there are a lot of good resources out there on the web for graduate students to use. And I encourage you to take a look at some of them because there's a lot of good advice in there, more so than I'll be able to talk about in my short time here this morning. So let's start with just a simple question, and that is, what is an advisor? And people have different concepts when they think of an advisor. It somewhat depends on what field you're in. It will differ from field to field. So as a scientist, a lot of my students will come in and say, oh, this is the all-seeing, all-knowing wizard behind the curtain who pulls all the levers and makes all the magic happen. That's what an advisor is, right? No, not true. Oh, that's the person who's brilliant and knows all the answers to everything and knows that the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. And the answer is,
how are y'all doing?
No, that's not it either. So what is an advisor then? Well, it's really simple. An advisor is someone who offers you advice. But they also play a role as your teacher. They're going to teach you about the field you're going to work in. They're going to be your coach. They're going to help you figure out what kinds of things you need to do to be good at your profession that you've chosen. They're going to be your guide. They're going to help you figure your way through the maze of learning how to be a professional in your field. They're going to be your mentor. Hopefully they're going to help you to decide how you do this job you've come here to learn how to do. And they're going to be a resource for you because they're going to be able to tell you where to go to find out about this, that, and the other when you aren't sure. So those are all important roles. And then the question is, well, how do you choose an advisor? Well, this is actually one of the most important decisions you're going to make as a graduate student. And I liked what Dr. Kamenecki said. A number of her things you're going to hear echoed in my own talk. And that is that you have to be proactive about trying to make these decisions. Nobody's going to tell you what step to take next necessarily. You need to be thinking about that for yourself and investigating things for yourself. So in order to learn how to do that, let's talk about how not to choose an advisor. Well, first of all, don't leave it to chance. Leaving it to chance is probably the worst possible way to choose an advisor because you will get not what you're looking for, most likely. Don't pick someone just because they're available. In other words, oh, here's somebody, they're available, they might work with me, I'll pick them. That's not a good reason to choose an advisor necessarily. Don't pick someone just because maybe they're the only person who works in an area that is specific to your area of interest. They may work in slightly different areas, but they may be perfectly fine advisors for what it is that you're interested in doing. And don't pick someone, and this is perhaps most important of all, this comes back to the point about knowing yourself. So don't pick someone whose style of working with students doesn't match your style of learning and what you need from your advisor. That's an important point. So then when you start to think about an advisor, how do you start? What do you ask a prospective advisor? And the first step is you're going to need to go talk to people. Okay? So you should, when you talk to a prospective advisor, you should ask, well, how many other students do you currently advise? If they tell you I advise 10 other students, well, give that some thought. Will that work? In some fields, that's perfectly fine. In other fields, it might not be so good because it's going to be difficult for them to have sufficient time to spend with you. How are your students? Ask them. How are they supported financially? Are they on a research assistantship? Are they on a teaching assistantship? Do they have no support whatsoever? That's an important thing for you to know. More importantly, what do you expect in return for that support? If you're supporting a student on a research assistantship, what did you expect them to do in return for that? How much effort do you expect of them? If they're on a teaching assistantship, what is the teaching load like? Those are questions you need to be aware of. If you're in a lab setting or a research setting where you're working in a group, ask how their group is structured. How do they work with their students and maybe their postdocs? Is it a group setting? Do they have group meetings every week? Are there regular meetings with the advisor? Do they like to meet weekly or monthly or every day with their students? How do they work with their students? Ask them how many of their students have successfully graduated and how long did it take on average. If they tell you, oh yes, my master's students always graduate and it takes them about 10 years, you might want to think twice. If they tell you, oh yes, my students get out, they get done quickly, we set a very ambitious schedule, and they get done, that's good news. But more importantly, ask them what they did once they finished. Where are they now? Did they get good jobs? Are they doing the things that they wanted to be doing? Did they get good advice from you so that they could go on and be successful in their chosen careers? Those are things you want to know, and you won't know unless you ask. How do you find out more? Besides talking to prospective advisors, also talk to other faculty in the department, people that you might like to work with. Get a sense of how they interact, because that interaction is very important. If you're a very quiet person who likes to not be bugged, you like to work on your own a lot, but just come in when you have questions and kind of keep track of things, that's one style of working. If you're somebody who needs a lot more interaction with your advisor, you have a lot more questions, you want to be guided a little more carefully at the beginning, those are different styles of interaction, and those are things that you need to be aware of. Talk to the other graduate students in your program. They always know a lot of things, and they'll almost always tell you the truth. So that's a valuable resource as well. Find out from them. How does their advisor interact with them? Are they happy with how that works? What are the pitfalls? What are the things to be aware of? Talk to other faculty and staff. Even if maybe you aren't interested in necessarily working with them, they also are part of your community. And so they may have some interesting advice to offer as well, or some insight. And sometimes actually it helps to talk to people outside your program and get a little bit of insight from them. Also, look up, you can get on the web and look up all kinds of things, right? Look up your advisor's publication record, their citations, their funding history. Look up indications of their standing in the field that you want to go into. If you are choosing an advisor, you want someone to guide you who has been successful in the field, because they're going to be able to tell you how you can be successful in the field and help you to understand what that might take and what's involved in trying to be successful in that field. So what can an advisor do for you once you choose an advisor? Well, we mentioned they're going to teach you about the field. That's pretty obvious, right? Now, I say that with a little bit of trepidation because you need to be aware that, in fact, you're in graduate school now, and what that means is you're expected to begin to teach yourself. What they're really going to do is to guide you and to give you advice on where to go to learn what you need to know, and they're going to help you along the way. But it's really going to be up to you to do the learning part. They're going to guide you in choosing a reasonable and interesting project. Reasonable meaning it's something that you can do in a reasonable period of time while you're in graduate school, not something that you will take 25 years to finish. Okay? There's at least a piece of it that you can accomplish that will provide you with your dissertation or your thesis or whatever. They're going to provide you with resources and with feedback. Feedback is really important. One of the key things you're going to want from your advisor is feedback on how you're doing. Am I making progress? Am I going down the right roads? What can I do better? How can I improve? And you should always want that feedback. You should never think of that as some kind of criticism. It's helping you to learn what you need to know, again, to be successful in where you want to go. They're going to be able to tailor your experience to your career goals. So once you choose an advisor, one of the first things you should do is sit down with them and say, here's where I want to be in 5 years. Here's where I want to be in 10 years. Here's the career path I want to follow. And they can then help to tailor the experiences you're going to have as a graduate student. Make sure that you're getting experiences doing the kinds of things that you're going to want to do and need to do in order to be successful. So that's really important that they understand where you're trying to go so they can help you figure out how to get there. They can promote your work to others in the field. So when they go out and speak to their colleagues, they can talk about, oh yes, my student so-and-so is doing this really interesting project related to what you're doing, and you might be interested to know more about it. Let me introduce you to them. They can make introductions, they can make recommendations, they can get you connected to the people that matter in the field that you want to be in. And so that's a very important thing, and it's a very important responsibility of an advisor to do that. Now that said, it isn't just up to the advisor. Let me give you another piece of advice, and that is that the better your faculty members and your advisor know you, the better they understand the kind of work ethic you have, the better they understand your understanding of the field and so on, the better they can represent you and the better they can support you as you move forward. Because the better they know you, the stronger a letter of recommendation they can write for you. What can an advisor not do for you? Well, they can't do the work. That's your job. They can't provide the commitment. And the fact that you're all here today and you've committed to a graduate program or a professional program means you've taken that first step and you've made that commitment. Now, I guarantee you that in your time in graduate school, that commitment's going to flag from time to time. It always does. It's a long slog. Graduate school is not easy, and nobody should tell you it is. But it's worth it, because in the end, you're going to be an expert in your area. You're going to really feel fulfilled about having learned what it is you're passionate about, and that's a really good thing. So hang on to that commitment. Your advisor can't do that for you. They can't decide what interests you. You have to choose your passion. And I use that word passion very intentionally. You're the one that's going to drive the bus. You're the one that's going to finish that project. You're the one that's going to get all excited about finding the answers to those questions that are going to make up your project. And so if you don't have a passion to understand and learn that thing, to answer that question, if you don't have that passion, it's not going to happen. So you need to make sure that whatever project it is you're working on, it's something you really care about. That's really important. They can't write for you. They can't write your papers or your thesis or your dissertation. They can give you feedback on drafts of your writing, and they should. But it's really up to you to do the writing, and I recommend that you practice writing a lot. Don't wait until 3 months before you're going to defend and say, oh, I guess I got to write something now. That's a bad plan. Start writing now. As you're going along, write bits and pieces. Write down what you're learning. Practice that act of writing every chance you get. They can't think for you. Your goal in graduate school or professional school is to become an independent thinker, an independent researcher. Your goal is to learn to do it for yourself. And so that's where you should be aiming for. Now, advisors typically are busy people. They likely have a lot of other responsibilities. They probably have some administrative work. They're probably teaching. They're writing grants and reviewing proposals. They may be doing other research. They're doing outreach to the community. They're giving talks at conferences. So they have a lot of things on their plate. They probably have other students as well who they need to spend time with. So there are a lot of demands on their time. But that said, an advisor may be busy, but they should never be too busy for you. A good advisor will always make time for you when you need it. So when you need help or when you need to meet with them, if there's not already something scheduled, ask. Make sure that you reach out and say, I need a little of your time. I've got an issue I need to discuss with you. That said, use your time wisely. Make sure that you come to a meeting with your advisor prepared, whether it's every week or every day or every month. Make sure you come with questions in hand. Make sure you've made an attempt to answer those questions for yourself before you start. There's nothing that kind of gets under your skin a little more than a student who comes and asks a question that if they had Googled it for 2 seconds, they would have gotten the answer. And you kind of feel like, okay, I think you could have probably figured that out. So when you come with questions, make sure you've thought about it first. Make sure you've made an attempt before you go and ask the question. And most importantly, keep your advisor apprised of your progress. Make sure that they know where you are in your project, how it's coming along. Make sure they know what you're working on currently. Don't disappear. We always have a few students who will, they'll start out really gung-ho, and then about a year or two into their program, suddenly you don't see them around much anymore, and they don't seem to come by your office, and you're wondering, wonder what they're doing. I don't actually know what they're working on. And so then you ping them, you send them an email, or you call them, or you say, hey, stop by my office and let's chat. I shouldn't have to reach out to you. You should be reaching out to me. And I like to meet with my own students at least once a week. So I have a regular standing meeting with my own students. Many advisors like to have regular standing meetings just to talk about progress. Where are we? What's happening? What can I help you with? What progress have you made? And what are the next steps? There's a balance. And if you don't know about PhD comics, you should quickly learn because they're great. This shows you sort of the balance of how much time do you need to meet with your advisor. Well, they're on this end is where you never can find your advisor. They're never around. You go to their office and someone says, oh, he or she is out of town or in a meeting or never available. That's frustrating, and that's not good. On the other hand, at the other end, you've got the advisor who's constantly looking over your shoulder every minute of every day saying, what have you done lately? That's not good either. That's too stressful. People need time to think. You need time to think. And so you want to find that right balance. And for some people, the balance is going to be a little bit more to the less time. And for other people, that balance is going to be a little bit more to the more time. So it's up to you to find that right balance that works for you. What about other faculty? So we're talking a little bit about advisors, but even once you settle on an advisor, you're going to have a lot of other faculty, other maybe postdocs, other staff members, other people in your program, your department. Uh-oh. Apparently we don't want to talk about that. So let's try that again. There we go. All right. So there, you're going to interact with them a lot in informal settings. And so when you do that, remember that their impressions of you are also important. That doesn't mean you should be intimidated about talking to them. It means you should just keep in mind that it's always a good thing to make a good impression, right? It's always a good thing to be interested in what they're doing, to talk to them about what you're doing, and to get some feedback from them. They can give you useful feedback, even if they're not necessarily in your field, because they have some insights from a different perspective. And the more different perspectives you get on what you're doing, the more you learn about how to do it the right way. Okay, so that's helpful. Also, there are potential mentors. You can actually never have too many mentors. And you may have one mentor for your research project, but you might have another mentor who's helping you with writing. Or you might have another mentor who's helping you with public speaking. You might have another mentor who's helping you learn how to be a good teacher. So you can have mentors for all kinds of things. You might have a mentor who teaches you how to play volleyball. I don't know. So whatever it is that you're working on, you want to have somebody who can help you think about how to do that better. And you shouldn't ever think of questions as threats. I know that sometimes students give up and they'll give a presentation in a class or maybe at a seminar in their department, and then people will ask questions. And the student feels a little intimidated by that. They feel like they're being criticized or attacked because someone's asking questions about what they've talked about. Don't think of them that way. Those are opportunities. They're opportunities for you to tell more about what you're doing, but they're also important because they're expressions of interest. If I give up and give a talk somewhere, and when I'm done, I don't get a single question, I go away with my tail between my legs. And I feel like, oh boy, I didn't do a very good job there because I didn't get anybody's interest. Nobody cared about what I had to say. So questions are actually a good thing. You want people to ask questions. It means they were listening, they were engaged, and they learned something. Okay? So that's good. Other advice that I could give you. Take every opportunity you get to present and talk about your work and to get feedback. If you can explain it to other people, especially people who aren't specialists in your field, if you can explain it to the people who don't really work in your area, then you really are beginning to understand it yourself. That's really important. So whenever you're asked to give oral presentations in a class or a talk, take advantage of that. Practice. Practice in a safe setting so that when you get out there in a job talk, you don't freeze up, right? You've had plenty of practice. Or when you're teaching a class the first time, you're going to be really nervous, probably. Many people are. That's okay. That's normal. But after a while, it gets pretty easy. You know, you get to a point where you can just stand up and babble. And that's when you know you've made it. Okay? So I do that well. I babble a lot. All right. Conference presentations. When you get a chance to go to conferences, and hopefully you will have that opportunity, as Dr. Komanecki said, that's one of the most important things you're going to do, especially farther down in your graduate career. You want to be getting out there. You want to be getting out there presenting your work and talking to all the people in the field that aren't at UT. However, remember that we're a pretty big university, and we have a lot of people doing really interesting work here. And what that means is that we also have a lot of really interesting visitors who will come to the university to visit and meet with faculty and staff and give talks. And oftentimes those people are invited to meet with graduate students. And you should take advantage of that every chance you get, because you never know which one of those people that you meet when they come here to visit and give a talk might be looking for a postdoc or a collaborator or something else down the line, and they might remember that they had a really interesting conversation with you at the University of Toledo. So when you apply for their job, you can say, oh, you may not recall, but we met at the University of Toledo when you visited in 19 whatever. So I'm showing my age, 2000 whatever. And so you can take advantage of that. But you can also learn from them because they're bringing a lot of their expertise from outside in here. And it's not just visiting scholars, it's also people from the business community. It's people from the education community. It's people from the community at large, perhaps the political arena. So take advantage of the time you get to meet with those people and talk to them. Talk with other graduate students, and not just in your program, but outside your program as well. The GSA is a wonderful organization, and I hope you'll all participate in it. It does great things for our graduate students here, but it's also an opportunity to meet a lot of other grad students across campus. And when you're practicing talking about your work, don't hesitate to talk to everybody. Tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your grandmother, tell your neighbor, your mail carrier, talk to your dog, I don't care. Just practice, okay? One of the things, you get the idea, and one of the things you should always have eventually, and hopefully sooner rather than later, is an elevator speech. Has anybody ever heard that term? An elevator speech? So an elevator speech is what happens when you step into the elevator with a person who's the true expert in the world in your field, and you have exactly 2 minutes to tell them what you do before the doors open and they get off. Okay? You have to make an impression, you have to be very concise, and you have to really convey the excitement of what you're doing and why they should care, and you got to do it in 2 minutes. That's a challenge. So that's a goal for you to set for yourself as you begin to work on your projects. Can you explain it to somebody in a very short period of time, and they can understand it and kind of get excited about it too, and want to hear more about it later? That's a good thing to be able to do. Okay, so let me just summarize because I want to leave a couple minutes for questions. The most important thing is communicate, communicate, communicate. Always talk to people, talk to your advisor, be in contact. Don't go try to do it all yourself. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to work with people. Don't disappear, don't hide out. And when you get stuck, for heaven's sakes, don't just go slink away in a corner. Go ask somebody. Say, you know what, I'm stuck. I don't know quite what to do next. I've tried this and that and the other. It's not worked. Got any suggestions? That's how you get out of those ruts. Show initiative. You're going to have to work hard. There's no way around that. That just comes with the game. You need to be self-motivated. You're the one driving the bus. You're the one with the passion. You're the one defining what it is you're trying to get done. Make time for your research or your project every single day. Even if it's only 5 minutes to browse a couple of abstracts or to write your thoughts on the day or what you learned today. Some people like to keep a journal. What did I learn today in my field? And just summarize it for yourself. It gets you to focus back and think about it. Ask for help when you get stuck. Take advantage of these informal interactions. Learn about the process of your chosen career as well as the content, because the process really does matter. How do you do it? Interact, present, go to conferences and network. And most of all, keep your eyes on the prize. Remember why you committed to this path. Remember what your hopes and dreams are for where you want to be when you're done with this. And good luck to all of you, and I really want to welcome you to the University of Toledo. And if we have time, I'll take a couple of quick questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for a couple of quick questions. If anyone feels brave, I know sometimes it's daunting in a room of this size.
I really don't bite.
Yes, is that a hand, or is that someone just saying, is it time to go yet? One question? Going once?
Oh, no, you're going to make me slink out of the room embarrassed? Come on. Somebody's got a question. There we go.
Wonderful.
So you said about your elevator speech. Is this like a sales pitch?
It's kind of related to a sales pitch because what you're really trying to do is to interest somebody in, if you will, a product. But that product is you and what you can do and what projects you're working on. So in a way, yes, it is a short sales pitch, but it's a very focused sales pitch that's really more about telling people about who you are and what you do.
So when Dean Bjorkman gives hers, she talks about her amazing stars and experiences with astronomy. I gross out the person standing next to me when I talk about parasitic worms and tropical diseases. So, you know, you have your choice as to where you want to go. Another question?
So the question was, where should you start beginning your search for an advisor? And I think the best thing to do is go look at the list of roster of faculty in your program and just go down the list, find out a little bit before you go talk to people. See if you can find out a little bit about what generally they work on, what areas. And then once you have sort of a general idea, sort of pick a handful, I'd say 4 or 5, that you think it would be really interesting. They're doing things that interest you, and just go ask them for an appointment and make an appointment for about half hour and go chat with them about their work and what they do and what you're interested in and see if there's a connection there. That's what I would recommend. Yep.
And also, some of you will have departmental or programmatic orientations, and where there will be graduate students, current graduate students in that program talking about these kinds of things. That's another way to get good information and talk to them. You know, how is that person as an advisor? Were they accessible to me? Did they give you good guidance when you needed it? That kind of thing. So we had another question.
If you selected an advisor, do you have the right to change him later on?
Yes, you do, and that sometimes happens. There will be times when a student may start to work with an... I'm sorry, yes, thanks. The question was, if you've selected an advisor, do you have the right to change that advisor later on? And so my answer is yes, you do. And sometimes a student will start to work with an advisor, and it'll turn out that either they have divergence of interests in what they want to work on, or perhaps their styles just are a mismatch. Let me also, though, caution you that don't go too far down the road before you make that decision, because it's very difficult if you change advisors after you're 2 or 3 years into your program. It's far more difficult to recover that time, and it may delay your completion. So think carefully at that point. It's good to kind of make sure that you're comfortable with your advisor and you're going in the right direction, if at all possible, within the first year or 2 of your program. You can change after that, but it becomes more complicated at that point.
Last question.
When should you choose an advisor? Should you start looking for one right now, or a year from now?
That's a great question. The question was, when should you choose an advisor? Should you start now, or should you wait a year, or what? Start now. Absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean you have to choose an advisor. I think in many departments, there's usually a policy that by the end of your first year, you need to have chosen someone to work with on your research project. But it varies from department to department, so talk to your department about what their policy is. But that doesn't mean you should wait to start looking. You should already be, even when you walk in the door. And actually, right now is a great time to do it because you're new to the department. So you get to say, hey, I'm new, I want to meet everybody, right? So it's a great opportunity to go out and start interacting with people, not necessarily officially looking for an advisor, but just kind of finding out what people are like and how they are to work with.
And just as a knock on to that, one of the things that we really encourage you to do is to create your program of study no later than the spring after you enter in fall. And in order to do that, you need to discuss that with an advisor. And so the sooner you can find an advisor, the better, I think, your road, and the easier your road will be in terms of knowing what benchmarks you have to hit, when you have to hit them. It is always possible to change a plan of study, update a plan of study, but it's a document that you can find on the College of Graduate Studies website, and it's essentially your path to your degree. Keeping in mind, if you're in a master's program, you've got a much shorter time to get all of this done. If you're in one of the areas where you're working with human subjects or with radiation or animals, those kinds of things, you need to get special approvals. So you must have an advisor because he or she then has to document all of the approvals that you get for that before you can even start your work. So for a doctoral student, for example, that's pretty imperative. So take a little time to navigate some of that, and will you all